I hope you have enjoyed the story so far. Please like and subscribe.
Chapter 16, Accidental Discovery. We had a week to settle in and for Shay to recover before anyone beyond our closest friends came calling. Recovery meant a few hours of interrupted sleep every night. Kiari roused us nearly every hour wanting food. I regularly took my turn holding her after she finished feeding. I cradled her in my arms, running my fingers through the flame-colored silky fur atop her head. I wondered if my caress or a full belly lulled her to sleep, but her soft purr calmed my tired mind. Shay insisted Kiari sleep between us each night. No one else was permitted to hold or talk to her. Shay explained that she needed to bond with both parents only. I still practiced with Frey during the day, both as a distraction and an escape from boredom. On several occasions, I offered to relieve Shay from her duties, if only for an hour or two, but she refused to leave our rooms. I informed her that human mothers commonly bottled their milk to offer the infant at a later time, or for the father to feed them. Shay glanced up at me, mortified at the practice. How does the kit bond with its parents? Through upbringing over time, I explained. She shook her head. Krathan tradition dictates mothers feed the kit until its teeth begin to form. Apparently, this could last up to a year. Once the eyes open, a wet nurse might serve, should the mother require. As no lactating females existed on the station, this outcome remained impossible. What about the shipyard? Shro and my uncle manage the ships. They require no supervision from me, she dismissed. My place resides here. She looked up at me. Your place is to provide for our family while I care for our kit. I studied her in stunned silence as she grinned up at me from the sofa with tired eyes. Kiari slept cradled in her arms, her tiny head against her mother's heart. Her statement shamed me in that moment. How could I provide when my entire life depended on her? I opened my mouth, closed it, and clenched my teeth in frustration. How do I do that? I finally barked. I hadn't meant for it to come out that way, but the realization of my uselessness gnawed at me. This, I waved my hands and glanced around, belongs to you. Us, she corrected. I froze mid-rant to look at her. What do you mean? I asked incredulously. She stood and gently placed Kiari into the basket beside her. The basket held something from each of us. A lock of Shay's mane and one of my gym shirts adorned her bed so that she could always feel us close. I recalled balking at the idea of using the sweaty gym shirt, but Shay overruled me, claiming it was important for the bond. Our scent would ingrain itself in her memory and senses so that she would always recognize her parents. Shay stepped over to me and placed her hands on both sides of my face, holding my gaze. I attempted to avert my eyes in shame, but she only shifted her head to peer into my eyes, searching. Our future rests with you. The idea behind joining our people is yours. This, she glanced around with her eyes, is ours, not mine. You are a leader if you so choose. I lack the knowledge, I sighed, resting my forehead against hers. She slid her face against my cheek. Her hot breath warmed my ear like a summer breeze. Yes, you do, she breathed into my ear. They will follow you. You just must decide to lead. Talk to Mercy. He will guide you. I pulled her close and breathed in her scent. It was a mixture of wet pine and milk. She also exuded the undertone of cinnamon and lavender that defined Kiari. I love you, I purred into her fur coat. I left to clear my mind and found myself in the gym, moving slowly through the techniques I now knew by heart. My mind no longer needed to guide me. My body already knew them intimately. Every motion flowed fluid and graceful in its execution. Frey entered the room about an hour into my routine. I missed her entry but caught her scent like fresh-cut cedar. She stood watching me, judging my form, my fluid precision in every move. I brought my meditative practice to a close with simple finality. What bothers you? Probed Frey. I grabbed a towel and turned to her. I must provide for my family, I mumbled. Frey tilted her head and swiveled her ears in confusion. What stops you? She asked plainly. How can a human lead Krathan? I snapped. I am not one of you. I slung the towel and paced. My frustration boiled to the surface again. Shame, doubt, all on display for anyone to see. Frey's ears dipped low in frustration. You father Krathan cub. You learn our ways. You seek to make Krathen stronger through alliance. I say you are Krathen. She stood straight, her ears erect. I follow you. Why? I stopped and faced her. What about me deserves your loyalty? She stepped within inches of me and placed her hand over my heart. Because you are honest. You are loyal to those around you. I grabbed her forearm. I couldn't discern what compelled me. I half expected her to send me flying across the floor, but she returned the gesture, and our arms locked together. Thank you. Now lead, she growled sternly, pulling me face to face. Your friends will follow you. I found Mercy lounging in his office on the cruiser with his feet on his desk. Welcome, Mitchell. How does fatherhood treat you? Tiring, I admitted. I gestured to the seat across from him, and he nodded. What brings you here? He inquired curiously. How soon can you travel to Sol's system? I leaned forward in the chair and locked eyes with Shay's uncle. He blinked in surprise. We can launch within the hour. Why? Shay cannot travel for some time. It might be another year before she can travel, I began. We require the resources from Sol's outermost belt if we are to flourish. I want you to lead the survey mission and report back. Mercy's ears swiveled in what almost appeared as amusement. And what does Miktar Shaisi say about this? She wanted to oversee this mission herself. I raised an eyebrow in response and smiled without showing teeth. Shay says I must lead. I believe we must trust those who can act without direct supervision. I know that without resources, our empire will crumble before it can even form. Mercy dropped his feet onto the floor and leaned forward with a menacing grin. What empire? I held my ground, meeting his gaze with my own. I want to build a future for our daughter. That future requires growth and loyalty to each other. I proceeded to explain my idea of building a mining colony at the fringes of Sol that united Krathen and humans. Mercy nodded when I finished. Shay has chosen well. I will brief the other captains about our plan to advance the timetable. You mentioned an asteroid made of gold near your homeworld. How would we know this element? It resides in an asteroid belt between the fourth and fifth planets. Gold is a dense, yet soft and malleable yellow metal. It resembles this. I pointed at the intricate gold patterns of my bond band. If you find it, do not take all of it. Earth has a particular interest in this asteroid, and if it disappeared, it would alert the governments prematurely. We finalized the details of my plan over glasses of root tea well into the evening shift. A quick call to Shro secured the supplies required for the trip. 2 additional science vessels pledged support, with Hoshka assuming lead on the surveys. Mercy would oversee the operation as a whole and would correspond with Shay and I on their progress. The trip would take 2 months to reach the heliosphere that marked the edge of Sol. I departed the meeting, imbued with a newfound confidence I never possessed. I paused briefly to collect some spiced meat cubes and grapes for Shay and me on the way back. Shay was already asleep when I arrived in our rooms. Her white naked form lay curled around our daughter. I placed the food down on the table beside the bed and gently stroked her mane. She purred and leaned into my touch with a soft, chirping sound with each touch. After about 30 minutes, I leaned down and kissed the end of her nose softly before heading to the shower. For the first time since leaving Earth, I no longer reacted to my environment. I shaped it. I emerged to find the plate of meats gone. Shay leaned over the edge of the bed in the darkness, her brilliant ice blue eyes reflecting the light from the bathroom. I froze in the doorway, watching them blink in and out of existence slowly. Beneath them spread a brilliant white-fanged grin, reminiscent of the Cheshire Cat toying with Alice. I switched off the bathroom lights, which scarcely modified the scene before me. The ambient blue light from the control panels persisted in illuminating the situation, except now the eyes glowed a more brilliant ice blue. Well, hello there, I remarked with a flash of my own fangs playfully. She offered no reply, simply tracked my movements with predatory contemplation. I approached wearily. Such intense consideration had never been trained on me. I knelt beside the bed, my face to hers. Then I noticed her tail flickering back and forth like a fisherman's fly rod. Shay inhaled deeply before leaning forward to nuzzle her face against my cheek. You smell good, she whispered. You're not intending to eat me, are you? I uttered back. She purred. I might nibble a bit. She captured the lobe of my ear between her fangs playfully and tugged. She avoided breaking the skin, yet a definite emphasis of possibilities emerged. I pushed forward against her yielding form, easing into the bed with her. Promise? I woke the next morning tangled in sheets trapped under Shay's heavier form. I attempted to maneuver myself carefully from my silken cocoon. No sooner had I freed my left arm than a claw extended to prevent my escape. Stay, she mumbled sleepily. I need to check on Chiari, I insisted as I attempted to extricate my right arm. More claws asserted themselves against my unprotected skin suggestively. She pulled me closer against her, her chin resting on my shoulder. I fed her less than an hour ago. She is asleep. Stay. We lay entangled for hours. I drifted back to sleep at some point not long after resigning myself to my fate. I didn't object. Months had passed since we enjoyed the intimacy of each other's presence. I woke when I felt Shay stir from the bed and slip off to the bathroom. I cracked open a single eye to watch her retreating frame and smiled. My life had definitely veered from the path I envisioned. I always wanted to experience everything the world offered, perhaps one day build a successful business, but I never imagined it unfolding in the way it did. I never envisioned traveling to distant worlds, much less meeting an elegant yet dangerous alien and falling in love. I slowly abandoned the warm confines of our bed to check on Chiari. She lay curled into a crescent ball of fur. Her sides rose and fell in a steady rhythm of her Krathan heritage. I wanted to hold her, but dared not disturb her, lest she cry out hungrily. I never knew a child could consume so much. So mesmerized by the sight, I failed to notice Shay approach to slip her arms around me affectionately. I leaned into the embrace and lifted a hand to caress her face without looking back. She is beautiful like her mother, I murmured. We stood there for several long minutes until Shay urged me away to the common room. How fared your meeting with my uncle? She prodded while preparing 2 glasses of what served as juice. I relaxed against the counter and accepted my glass. He departs this morning for Seoul, I informed her. I took a sip of my drink and smiled. It held the hint of something like orange juice, but with less tang. It was one of my more preferred flavored drinks. I imagine it will take about a month to reach the Kuiper Belt. I have no idea how long it will require to scout the region. I explained to her the possibility of an asteroid with large reserves of gold transiting through the inner asteroid belt and its value on Earth. If we could harvest a sizable quantity, we might employ it to construct a covert facility for recruiting and training humans with the desirable skills we required. Gold, as you describe it, serves a similar purpose for us when constructing ships but lacks the same monetary value, she remarked, peering over the brim of her glass. We employ it purely as an electrical conduit where optical cables prove impractical. What holds credit value in your society? I inquired. Shay considered the question carefully. Nickel and titanium primarily for ship construction. She shrugged. The war took priority, and thus these elements became the most valuable. I propose we develop our own fleets, manned by Krathan and humans independently of both our worlds, I confessed. Shay's ears perked and swiveled to catch my every word. I believe we could offer the greatest benefit if we operated privately rather than our worlds dictating to us. That will prove difficult, she cautioned. The Council maintains tight control on our industry. Then The sounds of mewling from the bedroom interrupted us after the door chimed. Come, called Shay as she retreated to the sanctuary of our bedroom to attend to Chiari. Shro entered the room before I could say anything. Good afternoon, she began cheerfully. I stood behind the counter awkwardly, but tried to look casual in my naked form. I wished to ask if you desired to tour the latest ship. Maybe you could recommend any improvements? My current state of dress failed to bother her, so I leaned forward on the counter, mimicking personal indifference. Besides, Krathan possessed less taboo about personal dress, or lack thereof. I would like to check out the new ship. Maybe you can explain the functionality? I looked toward the bedroom where Shay was presumably feeding Chiari. Hey, honey, can I go out to play with our friends? Shay stepped out holding Chiari against her chest and tossed me my gray military pants. I caught them easily, though one of the legs hit me in the face. I slipped them on nonchalantly before walking from behind the bar. Shro flicked her ears in amusement and watched me retreat to the sanctity of the bedroom. I can never comprehend the human obsession with clothing, remarked Shro. They lack fur to hide their genitals, explained Shay. Really, remarked Shro with a hint of interest. That would prove interesting. I overheard them discussing me like some curious oddity in the other room. Not a chance, I called out in response to Shro's statement. I returned to the common room where they turned to me in unison. Shay with humor in her eyes and Shro with unmasked curiosity. Heat flushed my face. You'll need to secure your own human, I quipped. I paused briefly to nuzzle Shay before following Shro down the corridor toward the shipyard. I stopped briefly to gaze around the sleek black ship resting quietly in the shipyard like a specter. The sun rising from behind the golden planet in the background highlighted its hull. It draped around the upper edges of the ship like a halo upon the angel of death. What do you think? Inquired Shro. Elegant, I remarked before moving on. The docking bay glimmered in dark, shiny newness to the point the walls almost reflected our images. Blue console lights flashed to life at each junction we neared, displaying the Krathen sigil signifying standby. Crew of varying coloring and uniforms bustled with purpose. Some glanced down at their data pads while others worked at some of the control panels. We turned the corner and stepped into a lift that took us to the command level. The doors revealed another hall, accented in fluorescent hues of green, leading toward what I presume was the forward command bridge. We passed armed security flanking access points to sensitive areas along our path. Multiple blast doors gaped, their status panels illuminated in bright green rather than the blues of the docking level. The door at the end of the hall opened, revealing an expansive room teeming with holograms, control panels, and data monitors operated by engineers. Nobody glanced up to investigate the new arrivals until Shro proclaimed departure procedures. The bridge echoed with orderly status updates as she settled into the captain's seat. I felt docking clamps release through the deck plating like little aftershocks. I watched, fascinated, as the stars drifted past the forward screen as the ship turned once it cleared the dock. Set course for the Theta ice belt at 80% maximum jump, intoned Shro firmly. Jump drive status? She glanced down at her own status display situated to the right of her chair. She keyed a quick sequence into the panel, and a semi-translucent 3D display flickered to life in front of her. Data readout filled both her center view and her peripheral. Drives at full power, the immediate reply confirmed. Operating at optimal levels. Initiate jump in 3, 2, 1. The stars on the screen pulled away from the ship, paused, and then streamed by in colorful lines. The transition scarcely registered. Only the increased hum of the engines through the decking hinted that anything had changed. Time to arrival? 15 ticks, the update stated. Minor fluctuation noted in the primary drive core. Still within tolerable threshold, one of the female engineers delivered the update in calm, detached tones, as though anticipated, making required adjustments. The subtle tremor in the deck intensified until Shro noticed. That does not feel minor, she voiced in concern. I refuse to die on my first trip. Fix it, she commanded. Engine room reports fractured drive crystal, announced the system engineer. Prepare for emergency transition, the navigation officer warned. The ship stumbled out of jump into normal space. The transition forced me to grip the back of the captain's chair for stability, lest I pitch forward onto my face. We've entered normal space, navigation announced. Where are we? Barked Shro in irritation. We are 9.16 light-years from target, droned Astrometrics. Scanning current system. A momentary pause and then, trinary system. 2 hydrogen stars orbit each other in an elliptical pattern with a third distal red dwarf circling the primary sister suns. Another pause. I register 3 planets orbiting the red dwarf, 2 rocky planets along with a third gas giant. No life signs. How long until the drives are back online? Hissed Shro with increasing agitation. 2 hours, Maso. I approached the 3D system display, scrutinizing it intently. Something about the layout felt familiar somehow. How far are we from Earth? I asked without taking my eyes off the display. 7.2 parsecs. Can we scan the planets from our current location? I struggled to recall the ghostly evasive information. Something about an article I read concerning the search for habitable planets. Preliminary scans arriving, reported the Astrometrics tech. The gas giant has mostly hydrogen atmosphere, Possibly a failed star. The closest has oxygen-rich atmosphere with minimal landmass. It's mostly water. The second is a rocky world. Thin atmosphere, high iron and nickel content, barren with minimal water sources. Can we launch survey probes for continued scanning for later analysis? I asked hopefully. Negative. I cursed under my breath. That remained one thing I would recommend adding to the ship's drone complement for Earth-and-design ships. It would prove a useful tool for minimizing resources required for crewed explorations. Time ticked by slowly as we drifted through the medial plane between stars. When the drives reactivated, the deck plating rumbled to life like a giant awakening from a long, dormant slumber. The remainder of the test flight unfolded without a hitch. Large energy weapons vaporized icy rocks from both distance and close range as the ship weaved its way through the ice belt, using them to simulate attack fighters. Debris glanced harmlessly off invisible shields that flared only with impacts, burning up against them like asteroids passing through Earth's atmosphere. We returned home once Shro felt satisfied that we had collected enough diagnostic data to resolve any kinks in the system. The ship glided smoothly back into the dock, its forward momentum arrested by the powerful forward thrusters until the station could safely capture it with massive docking arms. Shro and I waited patiently for the umbilical to attach to the outer hull and pressurize with a hiss of rushing oxygen. Shro continued to scowl in frustrated silence. She expressed disappointment in the jump drive performance and conveyed as much to the engine crew chief. The male had stood silent, his ears plastered to his head in distress. The biggest reason humans haven't ventured into space colonization or distant exploration remains the cost of combustible fuel, I remarked casually while we waited. She looked at me in horror. How do your species not blow themselves up in the process? I never said we don't, I remarked with a sarcastic smile. 2 shuttle explosions occurred in my lifetime. We watched on monitors as one disintegrated during launch. The other disintegrated during re-entry more than 10 years later. The second led to the dismantling of the shuttle program. How do you launch yourselves into space without shuttles? She asked curiously. I shrugged. We strap into a detachable nose cone while we ride the rocket into space. I hesitated as one of the ship crew walked past before continuing. Space exploration became dominated by industrial giants. If my vision materializes, I desire to establish my own space exploration company and employ non-military thruster tech to propel humanity into space before revealing our true identity. What if they discover your plans prematurely? Then we accelerate our plans, I answered honestly.
You know you love the story so far. Like and subscribe.